welcome to the deep dive.
Hmm.
That feeling, the rush you get when you think you've nailed the pitch.
Oh, yeah.
You feel like you've got the perfect solution right there, and then bang, the prospect just leans back and hits you with that really crushing, definitive no.
It's universal, isn't it? Sales rejection, it stings. It's just part of the game.
It is.
Yeah.
But what our sources are making really clear, I think, is that the difference isn't if you hear no, it's how you treat that moment. That seems to be what separates success from, well, not success.
That's exactly the core idea we're digging into today. Look, the no in sales, it's coming. You can't avoid it. So the real question, the one the research really pushes us on, is this. Do you treat that rejection like it's a personal failure, a setback?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you see it as valuable feedback, as data?
Yeah.
Our whole mission here really is to give you that framework. How do you take that painful moment and immediately translate it into something useful, something that makes your strategy better next time?
I really like that pivot. It shifts the focus, doesn't it? Away from maybe blaming the product or yourself even, and puts it squarely onto the process.
Exactly. Accountability.
And if you can internalize that, rejection is just feedback, suddenly you've got more control. So, okay, let's unpack this. Where do the sources say we should start? Preparation, right?
Yeah, seems like the obvious place.
So one of the biggest reasons for getting that early no, it often starts way before you even pick up the phone or walk in the door. It's a failure in prep. Specifically, that temptation to just use the same pitch for everyone, that one-size-fits-all approach.
And what's really interesting there is the customer might not even need to hear your whole pitch to reject you if you miss this basic step. If that rejection comes super early, like right out of the gate, it almost always signals a mismatch. Your approach just didn't fit their world.
Right.
They're essentially telling you, you don't get my business, you don't understand how I make money. That's the feedback.
And the sources, they really detail this, don't they? This whole spectrum of customers you could be talking to. One day it's a massive supermarket chain, the next it's a tiny specialty liquor store, or maybe a petrol station forecourt, or even, what did they call it, a kafunda? A small local vendor.
Yeah, that regional term. And you have to know the difference. You've got to understand the profit and loss model, the economics of the specific business you're walking into.
So it's not just knowing their name.
No, definitely not. This is where the strategy deepens. You just cannot talk to a big distributor or a wholesaler the same way you approach, say, a high-end boutique shop. Why? Because what drives their decisions is completely different.
Okay.
Wholesalers, distributors, they're almost entirely volume-driven. It's about efficiency, moving boxes, supply chain speed, maximizing those tiny margins on huge quantities.
Right, bulk. Whereas the specialty shops, they're playing a totally different game.
Totally different. They're focused on maybe scarcity, curation, the story behind the product, the high margin they make on each individual item.
They're value-driven.
Precisely. Value-driven. So imagine walking into a small, carefully curated shop where every inch of shelf space is precious, and you start pitching a massive volume deal built for warehouse efficiency.
Yeah, they'll shut you down fast.
Instantly. Because their rejection isn't personal. It's feedback saying, this deal contradicts my brand, it blows up my inventory risk, and frankly, it shows you don't get why my customers come here.
So the feedback is crystal clear.
Yeah.
The pitch wasn't relevant. It lacked credibility for their specific business.
That's it. It wasn't about your product quality, probably wasn't even about the price point at that stage. It was feedback that you didn't do your homework on their operational reality.
That's a huge distinction to make. Okay, so homework done. Let's say you've prepared. Now we're in the room or on the call. The moment of truth, delivery. You've done the research, you know their model, but the sources really hammer home how critical those first few moments are for building trust.
Absolutely.
Starting with just a warm professional greeting, maybe laying out a clear agenda. Simple stuff, but important.
And this leads right into the next big reason for rejection. Hesitation. Hesitation kills deals. It's amazing how sensitive customers are to any sign of uncertainty.
Why is that?
Well, think about it. They're not just buying your product or service for today. They're essentially buying into your reliability for the future. So when a salesperson, pauses too long or fumbles with a price or struggles to clearly link a feature to a real benefit for them, that visible lack of confidence, it transmits instantly. The doubt just jumps across the table.
Okay, so you're saying the customer picks up on the salesperson's uncertainty and then starts doubting the product itself.
Exactly. From their perspective,
Yeah.
if this person can't even explain their own product's value clearly and confidently, Why on earth should I risk my company's budget, my time, maybe even my reputation on it?
It becomes a red flag.
A huge red flag. It signals risk. A timid or uncertain approach implies weakness, not just in the salesperson, but potentially in the entire solution or the company behind it.
I sometimes worry that when we say master your product knowledge, people just think it means memorizing a feature list, like a spec sheet.
Right.
But the sources seem to suggest it's much deeper. Yeah. It's about connecting it to the outcome for the customer.
Oh, absolutely. Mastery isn't just reciting features, it's knowing your product inside and out. Yes, the features, the pricing, how it stacks up against competitors, but then, crucially, being able to instantly translate all that knowledge into their language, into customer success stories, into growth projections for them.
Oh, okay.
You need to communicate clearly how your solution helps them achieve their goals, how it helps them grow or succeed. When you do that, you stop just selling features. You start selling confidence, confidence in a better, more reliable outcome for their business.
And when you sound authoritative, you signal certainty. You provide a clear path,
Yeah.
and that avoids that kind of delivery-based rejection.
Precisely. It builds trust instead of doubt.
Okay, that flows perfectly into the next big hurdle, doesn't it? Handling objections. This is the part I think most salespeople, secretly dread. But the material we looked at frames this moment with probably the most powerful insight we found.
It really is a game changer, I think. The sources state it so clearly. Objections are not rejections. They are opportunities for dialogue.
Say that again? Opportunities for dialogue.
Yeah, think about it. This is actually the highest form of feedback you can possibly get during a sales conversation. If a prospect is raising an objection, what does it really mean? It means they're still engaged. They're interested enough to not just walk away, but to actually tell you exactly what's stopping them from saying yes.
Huh. Okay. So they haven't dismissed you. They've actually invited you to dig deeper.
Exactly, an invitation to engage.
That really flips the script. It puts the power back with the salesperson, doesn't it, if they handle it right? So what's the strategy then? How do you turn that potential negative, that concern, into something positive, into deeper trust?
Well, the sources lay out a really effective two-step process. Step one is kind of counterintuitive for a lot of salespeople. Listen actively.
Okay. Sounds simple, but what does that mean in practice?
It means biting your tongue, resisting that powerful urge to immediately jump in, defend your product, or correct them. That's the natural instinct, right? Defend mode.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you have to consciously override that. Give the customer the space to fully articulate their concern, not just the surface issue like it costs too much, but maybe the feeling behind it.
Okay, but hang on. If you're just listening, especially if they bring up price, isn't there a risk they just dominate the conversation, drag you down a rabbit hole of discounts and budget cuts, and you lose control of the value story?
That's a really good point and a valid concern. That's why it's active listening, not passive listening. It's strategic. You're not just letting them talk. You're listening for clues. You're trying to understand, is this a genuine logistical problem? Like, how will this impact my inventory? Or is it more emotional, like fear of change, or maybe they got burned by a similar product before?
Ah, I see. So step one is really intelligence gathering. Understanding the real objection, not just the first words out of their mouth.
Exactly. You're diagnosing before you prescribe. Then comes step two. Address with confidence. Once you truly understand the root of the objection, then you respond. You provide the accurate information, you clear up any misunderstandings they might have, and crucially, you demonstrate your unwavering conviction in your solution's ability to solve their specific problem. This is where that product mastery we talked about earlier really shines.
Right.
Because confidence doesn't just answer the question on the table. It reassures them. It says, I understand your concern. We've encountered this before, and here's how we successfully navigate it.
Yeah.
It builds that bridge of trust.
I like that focus on discovery. It changes the whole dynamic. If you approach the entire presentation, but especially the objections part, by asking good, open-ended questions, you naturally position yourself less like a vendor just trying to push a product and more like a problem solver, a consultant who happens to have a solution.
That's the ideal positioning. Problem solver first.
Okay. So we've covered bad prep causing rejection. We've covered hesitant delivery. We've reframed objections. But here's a sneaky one the source is highlighting.
Yeah.
Deals falling apart after what felt like a successful call. Right near the finish line, what's going on there?
Yeah, this one can be incredibly frustrating. It often comes down to inconsistency. Specifically, inconsistency in follow-through.
Ah.
And this type of rejection is maybe the most painful because it feels entirely preventable, and it gives the most direct feedback possible about your personal reliability.
So you have a great meeting, everyone's nodding, seems like a go, and then silence.
Or worse than silence. You promise something during the call, I'll send that proposal by end of day, or I'll schedule that follow-up meeting tomorrow morning,
Okay.
and then you don't. The proposal arrives 3 days late, or the meeting request never comes. You've just completely torpedoed all the trust you worked so hard to build.
It's like a silent veto, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The customer might not even tell you why they went cold. They just start thinking, hang on, if this person can't even manage a simple email on time now, when they're trying to win my business, what's it going to be like after I sign? How reliable is their actual product, their support?
Exactly right. The sources really stress this.
Yeah.
Your reliability isn't just some nice-to-have personal trait. In the customer's eyes, it's actually part of the product's value.
Wow, okay. Part of the value.
Yeah. Your consistency in follow-through. That's their first and maybe most critical test drive of your company's overall operational capability. A missed deadline, a forgotten promise, however small it seems to you, it confirms their deepest fear, that doing business with you is going to be disorganized, difficult, maybe even chaotic.
So avoiding this specific type of rejection boils down to professional closing consistency.
Yeah.
What does that look like practically based on the sources?
It's about ending every single interaction with absolute clarity, confirmed specific next steps. Before you hang up that phone, before you walk out that door, you need to lock down who is doing what and by when. Explicitly.
No ambiguity.
None. And then follow it up. A simple professional email right after the meeting that summarizes the key discussion points, maybe reiterates the agreed-upon solution, and clearly restates the next action items, who owns them, and the exact date or time for the next contact.
That demonstrates structure, professionalism.
It does more than that. It makes the prospect feel secure. It eliminates uncertainty about what happens next and shows them you're organized and capable of managing their business effectively. It makes the whole process feel seamless.
Okay, so if we pull all this together, synthesize it down, the pattern seems really clear.
Mm-hmm.
Rejection. It's usually not about the core quality of your product or even necessarily the price tag.
Very rarely, in fact.
It's overwhelmingly feedback on the salesperson's process. It's feedback on your preparation, your confidence during delivery, how you handle those crucial objection moments, and maybe most importantly, your consistency in following through.
You've nailed it. That's the thread connecting all these points.
Well, this has been a really powerful deep dive. We've taken that, universal sting of hearing no and hopefully broken it down into 4 really concrete areas where you, the listener, can make immediate improvements. So instead of feeling defeated by rejection, you now have a kind of diagnostic tool, a roadmap to figure out exactly where the process might have wobbled.
That really is the key takeaway we hope you walk away with. If you can master these 4 areas, preparation, delivery, handling objections with dialogue, and consistent follow-through, then every single no you hear transforms. It stops being a setback and starts being strategic insight. And honestly, that insight, that's probably the most valuable asset you have for refining your approach and making sure you win the next one.
So we'll leave you with this final thought to chew on this week. It's taken straight from the source material, a question for your own reflection. Looking back at your last no, what feedback was hidden inside it?